All right. Hey, humans, coming at you live from my home office. Hope you guys are doing well. So, quick little lecture here over standard 1.4 spatial concepts. I'm going to go pretty quick through this. I expect the stuff that I really kind of just skip over and go quickly through, you fill in on your own using your AMSCO reading and your dictionary terms. All right, so today we are going to look at defining major geographic concepts that illustrate spatial relationships. So basically, we're looking at this idea of location, the space between them, how two places interact with each other, and so on. All right, at this point, you will want to pause so you can set your notes up like so. Move my camera out of the way here for you. All right. Okay, so spatial perspective, things that we're going to look at here. When we talk spatial perspective, we're basically asking you to look at the world and to ask these questions about places. What is there? Where is it located? Why do we think it's there? Why do we care? And then what patterns do we see when we're looking at spatial analysis around the world? All right, so place, three types of place here: sense of place, cultural landscape slash built environment, and placelessness. Basically, this is kind of like, how do we describe a place? How do we feel about a place? So if I was to ask you, describe Paris, you probably could come up pretty quickly with some ways to describe it. And then you'll see through sense of place and cultural landscape and built environment, additional attributes about that. On the opposite of this, we have this concept of placelessness, which is kind of a place that just feels meh. It might feel very similar to a lot of other places. Unfortunately, in the United States, we often sense placelessness in like a shopping mall, a strip mall, because we often see the same stores over and over again. So there's nothing unique to that place. All right, where? Um, Obviously, location is very important. So, absolute versus relative location, understanding that locations' names are often derived from their history or some sort of um, description of like the landscape, and we call that a toponym. And then we also have the site slash the physical landscape, which is going to be the environmental features of that area. So this could include what kind of climate is it located in? What types of water access does it have? Think back in history days when settlements were first being settled, you had to be close to water. But as technology has allowed us to implement, more in-depth irrigation, we can actually have our settlements further away from the original water source because we can bring it in through irrigation. All right. Things for you to note on here is the idea of the way that the latitude we see climate in the latitude. So at some point, you guys are going to definitely want to kind of get an idea, understand that this pattern repeats itself. So for example, if I am looking at the equator, we have a pretty similar pattern. You can see that we have the bright red and then the pink just all along the equator, which if I look on my key, that's going to be our tropical. And then you'll notice that these patterns start to repeat the further north and south you go. So again, it shouldn't surprise you that there is the same ice cap climate at the South Pole as there is found at the North Pole. And again, you guys can see where these patterns from the equator, they're the same. So again, like our climate here in Colorado, if I was to draw a line straight down, well, there's obviously no land here, but I'm going to scooch over a little and you can see it's the same colors. So this is all based on the latitude line it is located in. All right, why there, why care? So basically, again, a lot of what we're going to talk about in this class is spatial interaction. How do places connect with each other? And then there is two types of concepts you need to be familiar with when we talk about the connectedness or lack thereof. So we have the first idea of distance decay. And guys, this is basically saying the interaction between two places declines as you get further away. This can also put into place if there is a large physical barrier that is between two places. that would prevent too much interaction, and then cultural barriers. So the big ones would be difference in language, where it would make it hard to interact, and then religious differences. Time-space compression is the increasing sense of accessibility and connectivity, which brings humans that are far apart seemingly closer together. And the biggest thing that drives time-space compression is technology. So obviously through the internet, I have friends that live in Saudi Arabia, and I can interact with them like they were sitting in my living room because of the internet. If I wanted to travel to Saudi Arabia, I have access through airplanes, which could get me there, much more efficiently than, any other method I have. All right. And that was why there and why care together. So make sure you guys note that in your notes. Okay, some different examples here, just again of this idea of connectedness. So you can see like 1500s, the average speed of horse-drawn coaches or sailing ships was 10 miles per hour. So it was going to take you a minute to get places. Then 1850, we start to have the advent of steam locomotives. All of a sudden, trains are going 65 miles an hour and ships are going 38 miles per hour. So if you think about just how quickly that increased travel time. Then in 1950s, we have aircraft that became available to go 300 to 400 miles per hour. And then, oops, sorry guys, a little excited here, a little ahead of myself. And then we have passenger jet aircraft that we know can go upwards to 600-700 miles per hour. Diffusion is the way that things spread from place to another. And obviously the rate of diffusion is dependent on time distance and distance decay and time-space compression. Okay, make sure you guys understand relocation and expansion diffusion. We're going to go into that deeper in our next unit. All right, so again, I want you to look through this and understand like correlations of data. So here we are looking at maybe two seemingly disconnected pieces of data. But when you actually really, take a minute, you start to see some correlation. So here on the left, we have population density of China, and then we have the concentration of a particulate matter in the air. And again, you guys should be able to look at this and immediately start to draw some conclusions about similar, urban high population density, and then the highest health impact of these particulate matters in the air. Okay. This is really interesting, very timely with COVID, just again, the difference in what happened. So obviously our population densities probably didn't change too much, but the human activity has decreased to where our air pollution is getting improved in China. All right, and then the last part here is patterns. And again, we're all about patterns in APHuman. So 3 types of patterns you guys will need to be aware of. So the first type of pattern we have is basically clustered patterns. And so you guys can see in the little diagram, so clustered would mean there's maybe a grouping of that phenomenon happening in cluster, very evident. Then we start to get into the dispersed side of this, where things are starting to be more evenly spread out and not necessarily clustered together. And then we always are going to want to ask the question, what is causing this happening? What are there, like, multiple phenomena going on that are causing the clustering versus the dispersion? Something you'll hear me say a lot during the year will be, look at where you see a clustering of data, and then almost just as important is, where do you see a lack of that clustering, and what can that tell us about what we're looking at? All right. When we are talking in AP Human Geography, you guys are going to need to know your world regions, because this is a way that it's easy to describe where patterns are. So you guys are expected, you're not going to ever be expected to memorize all the countries in the world, but you certainly need to have a better understanding of our regions. So you'll want to study this document here, this map, and you'll be doing more with this in class when we're back together. All right, so again, we define major geographic concepts that illustrate spatial relationships. That's it for 1.4, guys. Thank you so much, and reach out if you guys have questions or concerns.